all sure to be covered extensively in the upcoming presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But that leaves plenty of room for other, as of yet, unidentified subjects. Because there is now a push to get the subject of UFOs into the presidential debate. In fact, the hashtag disclosure debate is trending online as not only an effort to have President Biden and Trump address the subject, but to declare their willingness to declassify files related to UFOs and UAPs. That's unidentified aerial phenomena. And the subject may have more credibility than ever before, thanks to a group of scientists, academics, and researchers from, wait for it, Harvard. Yes. They have collectively suggested that not only may aliens exist, but that extraterrestrial beings could be living underground on Earth, on the moon, or even walking around among humans. Many of you are thinking right now about certain people in your life. You're like, yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. Coining the term Cripto-Terrestri to explain a secret UFO civilization, the scientists at Harvard have 4 theories on how those beings came to be walking among us. Number 1, they came from a different planet at some point, and they've concealed themselves ever since. 2, they're a form of intelligent species that have evolved separately from humans. 3, they're part of an ancient civilization on Earth, which mostly got wiped out at some point, possibly by a natural disaster. Or 4, there is something supernatural, like fairies and elves. Now, at one point in time, you could maybe say this seems so fantastical, but does the fact that this is all coming from Harvard researchers lend it any more credibility to the point where this will actually be covered in the presidential debates? And if so, what would Joe Biden and Donald Trump say? Just 4 months ago, or 4 months into his term, I should say, President Biden couldn't have been more dismissive when the subject came up.
President Obama says that there is footage and records of objects in the skies, these unidentified aerial phenomenon, and he says we don't know exactly what they are. What do you think that it is?
I would ask him again. Thank you.
Donald Trump, on the other hand, had a much more measured response just a few days ago when he was a guest on wrestler-influencer Logan Paul's podcast.
I've met with pilots like beautiful Tom Cruise, but taller, okay? Yeah. Handsome, perfect people. Sir, there was something there that was round in form and going like 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. And I look at these guys and they really mean it.
Yeah.
And am I a believer? No, I can't say I am. But I have met with people that are serious people that say there's some really strange things that they see flying around out there.
And remember, that was coming from people that look like Tom Cruise, only taller, so there's some credibility there. Now, keep in mind that this question was posed to Donald Trump by Logan Paul. He zip-lined into WrestleMania before a match in which he launched himself off the top rope. Now, I'm not knocking him, but would esteemed journalists like Jake Tapper or Dana Bash, who are moderating the first presidential debate, will they ask these kinds of questions? Remains to be seen. Will the candidates have to tackle this issue when the lights are the brightest and the world is watching? Maybe even other worlds? Well, joining us now is UFO Seekers lead investigator Tim Doyle. Tim, thanks so much for coming on. So, they're going to be talking about a lot of different issues. You think UFOs, extraterrestrials is going to be a question that's asked?
I definitely think that UFOs and UAP will be a question asked. I don't know specifically alien. Unfortunately, there isn't any scientific evidence of aliens having visited Earth, although that's what I spend my life and passion searching for, because there are so many people who believe they have seen something in the sky or encountered aliens. I've met a woman who swore she gave birth to an alien baby. So I think because of there's 2 separate issues going on, the UAP and the alien question. Right. Of course, there's so much out there in the universe. Aliens exist somewhere. But as far as aliens visiting Earth is a separate question. Of course, the UAP is a real issue and something is infiltrating American airspace. I myself have captured a spherical ball flying in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. I've seen a balloon delivery system over California. Yeah. So UAP is an important issue, and also destigmatizing it.
And I agree, and I think it's a serious issue that can't be ignored at this point anymore like it was in the past. My question to you would be, what would you hope our next president would say about UAPs or UFOs?
I would hope that the next president would tell us which country is infiltrating American airspace and what they're doing about it. Of course, the Chinese spy balloon was a perfect example of human-made origins for these kind of objects. Of course, a balloon was shot down in the 1940s because the mainstream media was working with the Office of Censorship in the federal government to cover up the balloon bombs that were coming from Japan during World War II, which caused the only deaths on the American continent during the World War. So it's things like that, I think, that the president really needs to step up and let us know if it's our own technology, which I don't agree with because we'd just be running a propaganda operation on ourselves. But I really think that it's some type of foreign entity that's been infiltrating our airspace with advanced technology. I mean, hey, even I run a drone photography business on the side, and I'm using Chinese-made drones, which I could never get away with using American-made technology.
Look, it's 2024. I think questions about AI and UAPs and UFOs are significant, and there's a strong likelihood that those questions will need to be asked. If it's not asked at this debate, it's going to be asked in the near future.
As insane as it may sound, it looks like a Harvard paper by social science researchers raised some pretty far out there possibilities that could explain the whole UAP stuff that I have become very obsessed with. They're posing 4 possibilities, like maybe crypto-terrestrials or like this secret advanced civilization that's been hiding somewhere here on Earth, or even maybe the moon where we can't see them, or maybe humans from the future are visiting us, or maybe like magical beings like fairies or angels are real. Now, has this paper been peer-reviewed? No. It looks like the original link doesn't work anymore either, but those headlines traveled the world anyway. So what the heck is going on? Well, we are lucky enough to be joined by the one and only Harvard academic and astrophysicist who we've been talking to about UAP issues for years, Harvard University Professor of Science and Astronomy, Avi Loeb. Professor, thanks so much for being with us. And as soon as I saw the headlines on this paper, I ran to this paper, I scanned, I did not see your name attached there. So I do have to say, though, whether you had anything to do with this or not, you have been, in my eyes, one of the first academics, Ivy League academics, that has taken the idea of extraterrestrials very seriously and discussed it. I'm not sure what kind of Pandora's box you opened, but when it comes to this paper, I got to ask, what do you think about your peers, what they're writing over at Harvard there?
Well, thanks for having me. Indeed, I think that it's arrogant of us to think that we are the only ones out there. There might be much more advanced civilizations, because we came late to the game, and most stars from billions of years before the sun, and a quarter of them have planets the size of the Earth, roughly at the same separation. So it would be really pretentious of us to assume that Albert Einstein was the smartest scientist who ever lived since the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago. Nevertheless, science is all about evidence. We should be humble and accept the data as a guide towards what's out there. And there is no evidence supporting the claims in this paper. Mm-hmm. And obviously, over the millennia, people came up with a lot of ideas about what might be out there. However, without the data, we cannot proceed. And there are many more possibilities than the one realized in nature. And to find out what's out there, we just need to use instruments, look out, and check the evidence.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying that if you were peer reviewing this paper, it would get a big red, where is the evidence on it?
Exactly. Okay. And it's very easy to come up with ideas, much more difficult to come up with materials from interstellar space. So I'm actually pursuing the latter.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the last time we checked in with you, I think you had just gotten back from an ocean expedition in the middle of the Pacific, I believe, or in the middle of the ocean, looking for like the tiniest little fragments of what you thought might be an interstellar probe, or a probe from, another civilization potentially. Like, what's the latest with the material evidence there?
This object was discovered as a meteor. It exploded over the Pacific Ocean. The fireball that released a few percent of the Hiroshima atomic bomb energy was detected by sensors aboard the U.S. government satellites, and they pinpointed the location. Based on that region, that the Department of Defense provided us with. We went there and we put a sled with magnets on the ocean floor, going back and forth 26 times, and we collected spherules. These are molten droplets from the explosion of a meteor, and 10% of those showed a chemical composition that was never reported before in the scientific literature, does not resemble what we find on Earth, Mars, the Moon, or any other solar system material that we are familiar with. And so our inclination is that it came from outside the solar system. The evidence that the meteor itself came from outside the solar system was that it was moving faster than 95% of the stars outside the solar system. It was very fast. And moreover, it disintegrated only in the lower atmosphere. So it was tougher than all meteors previously reported by NASA. And therefore, we are presently planning another expedition to find bigger fragments, bigger pieces among the wreckage of this meteor and figure out whether it was natural or artificial. Because if you just take your laptop and put it in a fireplace, you will get it burned up and the droplets will not tell you whether it was technological. However, if you find pieces from the screen, you can tell that it's technological. And so, you know, if we find that a piece of a technological gadget and it has buttons on it, the question is, should we press a button?
Now, you keep saying meteor, right?
Yes.
Is the evidence leading to a natural meteor right now, or is it leading towards this possible, you know, object that may be artificial?
What we know is that the unusual droplets that we found have an abundance of elements like beryllium, lanthanum, uranium that is up to 1,000 times more than solar system materials. However, we cannot tell whether it was natural in origin or not. I wrote a paper suggesting a natural origin. Most of the stars in the Milky Way galaxy are dwarf stars, 1/10 of the mass of the sun. If you bring a planet like the Earth close to one of them, the planet will get spaghettified, ripped apart into a stream of rocks, and they would be ejected, half of them would be ejected from that system at a speed similar to the one we noticed for this meteor, and the composition will be different because the rock will be molten when the planet comes close to its host star. So this is a natural origin, but we don't know for sure. And there is a chance we would find the core of the object, and then we can tell very easily whether it's a rock or some probe. And even if it's a rock, it will tell us something about our neighbor's yard that we've never known before. And among all the rocks that are floating out there, there might be technological trash, space trash. For example, Elon Musk launched in 2018 his Tesla Roadster car. Yeah. And this car, the calculations show that within 20 million years, it has a good chance of colliding with Earth and burning up in the Earth's atmosphere. Obviously, my colleagues would argue when seeing that, if they are not alerted to the fact that it's a car, they would say it's a rock of a type that we've never seen before.
Not a car, not a roadster.
And all I'm saying is...
There's no roads anymore.
All I'm saying is that Elon Musk may not be the most accomplished space entrepreneur. There might be lots of interstellar cars, some of which may collide with Earth.
I love it. The possibility of an alien roadster that may have crashed into Earth. If anyone can find those needles in a haystack, that's you. Avi Loeb, thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.